Okay. Welcome back to the reading of the Goblin Curse of Hamlin. I'm author Dan Allen. This is Davy the Dragon joining us for Chapter 3, The Hidden Cave. Last time, Claire was led into the forest by a kind goblin named Lefler to get her away from the priest who was trying to kill her. Now Claire is headed for the Cave of the Goblins. Chapter 3, The Hidden Cave. The journey to the Goblin Cave took up the rest of the night and into the day. It was very far for Claire, and her legs became tired. Even her leathern feet were sore, and her arms were scratched by bushes. Brave Lefler was also slowing. As the sun began to rise in the distance, it set a glare upon everything in the forest so that he was almost blind. He walked about with his long arms and long-fingered hands stretched out in front of him like the antenna of a beetle. This, with his wide, flopping feet, made him look very silly indeed, and you may laugh at him now, since Lefler is good-natured and always likes a laugh, especially when times are worst. "Take my hand," Claire begged, and Lefler did. Then Claire placed both of his arms upon the back of her shoulders, and he gripped them tightly with his long, spidery, sharp-tipped fingers, which were somewhat fearsome to Claire, but she wanted to be brave, as her mother had always said, "Kindness is the best form of courage." Then Claire led the way through the trees and bushes, except when Lefler said, "Do not go that way," or "Keep this way," and so on, recalling the path by the taste of the ground. "Do all the goblins run about at night in your villages?" Claire asked. "No," Lefler answered proudly. "Only a few are allowed to leave the cave to gather food. We're afraid of being discovered by humans." "But you aren't afraid of people, are you? You aren't afraid of me?" "Of course not. I used to be a child like you. I grew up in a little hamlet not far past Goblin Town. But I was always an explorer. I know all the secret paths that only the deer know about, and not even any hunters. So I should be very surprised to meet anybody on this trail." As they drew nearer the cave, the forest grew thick about them, and the ground rockier and steeper. Claire was made to use her hands to scramble over the rock. But poor Lefler took a tumble once and thumped his round skull upon a hard stone. He cried for a few minutes, while it bled. You would too. Until Claire made a salve by pouring some stream water upon the earth, stirring it with some dirt and adding bits of herbs she found growing near the stream. She pressed the mud against the wound, and within minutes Lefler commented that he was not so dizzy and could walk again. "You must trust me too," Claire said, "as I trusted you last night." "Of course," said Lefler, "but I thought you must be tired of my arms upon your shoulders." "Well," Claire thought aloud, "I might hold your hand instead." "I would love that," Lefler beamed. That would be nice." Lefler was about that same age as Tobias, and was always in wonderment about girls, and thought fondly of holding hands, and even once or twice imagined what it would be like to kiss a girl. But Lefler had not always been a goblin, so in his dreams he was never sure whether he ought to imagine kissing a girl or a goblin girl. So he had recently left off worrying about such things and instead taken up adventurous travels during the night, journeying beyond the old forest to the edge of the villages, where he could spy the children if they were about early in the morning or late at night, when the sun's glare was not so bright. So you can imagine it pleased Lefler very much to be holding hands with a girl who was also a goblin girl at the same time. By and by they came to a very steep part of the hidden path. Here Lefler led the way, for his hands and toes tasted all the familiar rocks. By then it was well past lunchtime, and they were very hungry. Finally Claire came to rest against a large rock that she had not the strength to climb over. "Oh," Claire said softly, "I think I will faint shortly if we do not come to our destination." So Claire leaned against the boulder and immediately fell asleep without any warning. Seeing Claire dozing peacefully, Lefler desperately wanted to take a nap as well, but he worried about stopping so close to the cave entrance. This was a perilous place for them to be seen. It was broad daylight, and there was a road nearby, and many travelers passed within sight of the cave entrance. If they were seen, it would spell disaster for all the remaining goblins in Germany, don't you think? Would your father tolerate a hillside full of goblins overlooking his farm, or let his children play near a den of such fearsome creatures? How would you like to meet a goblin in the night on the path from the outhouse? I shudder at the very thought. And if you don't, then you're braver than me. So Lefler bent down and scooped up Claire with his long fingers, and she woke as he held her, stepping gently from rock to rock, with his eyes only open a squint. Claire stirred, but was so tired she could not protest, and thus they came, step by step, Claire held up in the arms of the goblin. This would have looked very strange if you had seen it in person. for the goblin appeared to be quite frail being so thin. But in fact, Lefler's bones were almost as strong as iron, and his muscles, though stringy, were powerful for his size, so that he might even be as strong as Tobias, who was a very strong young man, because of his farm work and also his wrestling in the town square with the older boys. He was much like Claire's father, who was a man with tremendous strength in his arms and back, and could carry almost as much as a mule and almost as far. But as long as I've mentioned a mule, I should let you in on another secret. There was just then a boy and his father walking together with their mules upon the road at the base of the very hill where Claire was being carried up the rocks. The boy, who was called Matthias, had very sharp eyes, for he aspired to be a hunter, and he spotted something moving on the hill, a gray-skinned goblin with big black eyes carrying a poor girl in his arms. "Father," cried the boy, "look, a goblin, and he has stolen a girl. We must rescue her." The father looked about immediately, for his son never cried but what there was immediate danger, such as an angry bear, or an angry mother, or worst of all, an angry mother bear. But Lefler, hearing the cry, immediately dove into the ivy covering the cave entrance and was gone from sight. So the father, whose eyes were just a touch dim, saw nothing upon the hill when he looked. "Are you sure, lad?" he asked. "I have never seen a goblin in these hills, but rumors I have heard. And what was it you say? It had caught up an innocent girl?" "Yes, and when I grabbed your sleeve to get your attention and I looked back, it had gone." "Perhaps it has magic and vanished." "I think not," said the sharp-eyed boy. "When a deer vanishes, it is because it is hid down in the grass and blends so well that our eyes cannot detect it. But men say it was magicked away, for they are fools and have not patient eyes." "That is true," said his father. "So perhaps this goblin is hid down in the rocks and our eyes cannot spy him." "Yes, there are many nooks and crevices upon that hill," noted the father. "Then we must chase after the goblin and rescue the girl," said Matthias, "for she looked very poor and very ill, and the Lord Jesus would want us to save her." "That is very true," said the father, who knew that his son said his prayers at night and followed Jesus as well as any boy. "But I fear lest the goblin should have allies, and that in climbing that hill unarmed we would fall prey as quickly as a lame duck in a pond to an archer's arrow." Now this the father said because he was wise, for assuredly, had they gone upon the hill, the goblins in defending their home would have poured out of the cave swift as leopards leaping upon their prey, and the father and the boy could not have survived the ambush. Instead, the two of them dropped their load of straw and got upon their mules and set them into a gallop as quickly as the mules could carry them towards Hamlin, with the intent to tell the townsfolk what they had seen and perhaps organize a rescue party of such daring and well-armed hunters and axemen as could easily hew a goblin into pieces in one swift stroke. So the secret of the goblins came out. That's the end of chapter 3. Join us again next time for chapter 4 of the Goblin Curse of Hamlin. See you next time. Fade to black.